Welcome to the debate. I want to put a specific image in your mind to start us off today. Picture a radiologist, highly trained, years of medical school, looking at an x-ray. Now they're using an AI assistant to help spot a tumor. The AI marks a spot. The radiologist agrees. But here's the catch. In this experiment by Vincente and Matude, the AI was intentionally biased to mark the wrong spot. And maybe unsurprisingly, the radiologist followed the machine's lead.
That's the classic automation bias, right? We trust the silicon over the synapse.
It is, but here's the part that actually worries me, and it's the reason I brought this study up. In the second phase of that experiment, the researchers took the AI away. The radiologist was back to working completely solo. And yet, they continued to make the errors the AI had taught them. They'd inherited the bias. Even after the tool was gone, their judgment remained altered.
Which suggests this isn't just a tool we pick up and put down like a hammer. It's a tool that rewires us.
That is the crux of it, and that brings us to the central question we're debating today. Does the integration of artificial intelligence into our cognitive workflow represent a necessary evolution, a kind of cognitive scaffolding that elevates human intelligence? Or, are we walking into an existential trap of gradual disempowerment and de-skilling that will leave us incapable of autonomous thought?
I think you know where I land on this. I look at that Vicente study, and I just don't see scaffolding. I see erosion. We're drifting toward a state that legal scholar Joshua Crook calls a digital conservatorship. We are surrendering our agency, our competence, and eventually our autonomy, simply because it's convenient to let the machine drive.
I've read Crook's thesis, and while it's a compelling dystopian warning, I'll give you that, I believe it fundamentally misinterprets the trajectory of technology. I'd argue that we're moving toward a model of hybrid intelligence, and with the right frameworks, specifically what's being called the HIG, or Human-AI Governance Continuum, we aren't losing agency, we are redistributing it. We're trading the drudgery of rote processing for the leverage of strategic oversight.
Redistributing agency is a very polite way of saying giving up control.
Not giving up, elevating. Think of the transition from mental math to calculators. There was a panic then, too. Teachers warned that children would lose the ability to think. Instead, we stopped spending hours on long division and started teaching calculus and physics earlier. We offloaded the calculation to focus on the concept. I believe AI offers the same kind of leap. We can maintain what researchers call synchronic competence, the ability to judge the output right now without needing to do all the heavy lifting of the generation.
I have to stop you on the calculator analogy. It's the favorite shield of the techno-optimist, but it really doesn't hold up here. A calculator is deterministic. You punch in 2 plus 2, you get 4. It doesn't have a worldview, it doesn't hallucinate, it doesn't suggest a better number based on what it thinks you want to see. What we're facing now is cognitive offloading of a completely different species. We aren't just offloading tasks, we are offloading judgment.
You're referring to the distinction between process autonomy and decision authority.
I'm referring to the fact that if you don't use a muscle, it atrophies. This is the diachronic competence problem. If you rely on the machine to write your emails, code your software, and diagnose your patients, you might be efficient today, sure, but over time, diachronically, you lose the underlying skill required to even know if the machine is right. You become a passenger in your own profession.
But does the passenger need to know how to rebuild the engine to reach the destination?
If the engine starts driving toward a cliff, yes. And the data suggests we are already forgetting how to grab the wheel. Look at the study by Gerlich from 2025. They look specifically at this relationship between AI usage and critical thinking skills, and the correlation was negative. The more frequently people, especially younger subjects, relied on AI, the lower they scored on critical thinking assessments.
I'm glad you brought up Gerlich because that study is far more nuanced than the headline suggests. Yes, there was a negative correlation with heavy reliance, but the relationship was nonlinear. Moderate AI usage did not degrade critical thinking. In fact, in specific independent task setups, it actually enhanced performance. The data doesn't show that the technology makes us stupid, it shows that passive usage makes us lazy.
But passive usage is the default setting of the human brain. We're cognitive misers. We want the path of least resistance. The Gerlich study highlights metacognitive de-skilling.
Break that down for the context of this argument.
Metacognition is your ability to monitor your own thinking, to step back and ask, does this make sense? When you work with a generative AI that sounds confident, distinct, and authoritative, your metacognition just shuts down. You assume the machine knows better. This isn't just about getting a math problem wrong. This is about the Microsoft Knowledge Worker study, which showed that higher confidence in Gen AI correlated with lower critical scrutiny. We stop fact-checking, we stop reasoning, we just hit accept.
I agree that the human-in-the-loop model fails if the human is just a rubber stamp. That's bad design. But you're treating bad design as an inevitable outcome, and it's not. We can structure the workflow to prevent that de-skilling.
How? If the machine is faster and better, why would anyone struggle through the work themselves?
By separating the tasks. You mentioned the independent task model earlier. Let's look at the radiology data again. When a radiologist and an AI work sequentially, where the human does the scan, forms a hypothesis, and then consults the AI for a second opinion, sensitivity and accuracy go up, and the human skill is preserved. The de-skilling only happens in the joint task model where the human is just watching the AI work.
So your solution is that we must artificially force ourselves to do the work first, even though the machine is right there?
It's not artificial. It's a training regimen. Pilots spend 99% of their time on autopilot, but they undergo rigorous simulation training where the autopilot is turned off to ensure they can fly the plane. We need cognitive gyms. We need professional certification where you have to demonstrate capability without the AI. If we do that, we get the best of both worlds, human judgment plus AI speed.
The pilot analogy is seductive, but pilots are a tiny, highly regulated elite. We're talking about the general population. We're talking about students, office workers, voters. They aren't going to sim school. They're going to take the convenience. And this is where the conservatorship argument becomes terrifyingly real.
You think we're voluntarily entering a conservatorship?
I think we're being shepherded into one. Joshua Crook draws the parallel to Britney Spears. A conservatorship is a legal arrangement where someone is deemed incapable of managing their own affairs, so a guardian makes decisions in their best interest. The subject loses the right to make mistakes. Crook argues that as AI doubles in capability every 7 months, it becomes rationally impossible to justify human decision-making.
Rationally impossible? That seems like a stretch.
Is it? If Bumble's algorithm can predict compatibility with 90% accuracy, and your intuition is 50-50, isn't it irrational for you to choose your own date? If the AI career counselor knows the market and your aptitude better than you do, isn't it irrational to choose your own job? We're seeing a gradual disempowerment. We outsource the little things, then the medium things. Eventually, we outsource the meta decision, the decision of whether to decide at all. We become the happy slaves on the spaceship in WALL-E, floating in chairs, entertained, fed, safe, and utterly powerless.
The WALL-E comparison is vivid, but it assumes humans have no inherent desire for agency. We value choice because it is ours, not just because it's efficient. And regarding the rationality of outsourcing, there's a massive difference between optimizing a date and governing a life. This is where the HA framework, Human AI Governance, is so critical.
You keep mentioning age, but governance implies control. How do you govern something that is smarter than you?
By distinguishing operational trust from strategic trust. You don't need to know how to lay bricks to be the architect. In the age continuum, we can see the execution, the coding, the drafting, the data sorting, while retaining the strategic trust, which is the setting of values, boundaries, and intent. The commander's intent.
But intent without understanding is hollow? Look at the accountability gap we are seeing in policing. There was a trial by the London Metropolitan Police using facial recognition. The error rate was abysmal. Something like only 2 out of 104 identifications were correct.
A failure of the technology, clearly.
No, a failure of the human. The human officers deferred to the machine despite the obvious errors. They let the machine dictate reality because it presented an objective veneer of authority. They had strategic intent to catch criminals, but because they didn't understand the operational failure, they harassed innocent people. You cannot separate strategy from operation when the operation defines the reality you're looking at.
I concede the accountability gap is a major hurdle, but that is a failure of training and protocol, not an argument for banning the tool. Those officers should have been trained to treat the AI as a suspect witness, not some divine oracle. This brings me to the solution I advocate for: positive friction.
Positive friction. It sounds like marketing speak for making the product worse.
In a user experience sense, perhaps. Silicon Valley has been obsessed with frictionless design. One click, instant answer. That promotes the very passivity you fear. Positive friction creates deliberate pause points. Imagine if, when you accepted an AI's draft, the system paused and asked, "This output assumes a specific utilitarian ethical framework. Is that your intent?"
You expect big tech companies, whose entire business model is based on engagement and ease, to voluntarily introduce roadblocks?
Constitutional AI, like the work at Anthropic. They're trying to align systems not just with accuracy, but with human values. If we view the AI as a collaborative partner that challenges our thinking, rather than a dictator that just provides answers, we flip the dynamic. The AI becomes a sparring partner. It can actually increase critical thinking by forcing you to defend your position.
That is a beautiful ideal, truly. But I think it misses a deeper, more insidious problem. It's not just about whether the AI is right or wrong, or whether we check its work. It's about authenticity.
Define what you mean by authenticity in this context.
I'm drawing on Boisman's work on autonomy by design. Authenticity is the condition of having values that are genuinely your own, not implanted by some external force. There was a study by Jakes that is frankly haunting. They had participants use an LLM to write a post about social media. The catch was the LLM was secretly primed to be either pro-social media or anti-social media.
Let me guess, the participants wrote what the AI suggested?
They didn't just write it, they became it. When they were asked afterward, without the AI, in a private survey, what they thought about social media, their personal opinions had shifted to match the bias of the machine they had just used. This is user tampering. It's a subtle subconscious manipulation of our practical identity.
But we're porous creatures. We absorb opinions from books, from friends, from the news. Is AI really so different?
Yes, because of scale and homogenization, large language models are trained on the internet, which means they reflect weird values: Western, educated, industrial, rich, and developed. They regress to the mean. If we all use the same assistant to draft our love letters, our political manifestos, and our apologies, we lose the rough edges of human thought. We risk a massive homogeneization of the human experience. We aren't just losing the ability to do the task. We're losing the ability to know who we are outside of the task.
I agree that unconscious value drift is a significant risk. If we just flowed downstream with the algorithm, we dissolve. But I don't think the answer is to destroy the boat. The answer is to learn to navigate upstream. And this brings us back to positive friction and reflective practice.
But who designs the friction? Who decides what the constitutional AI values are?
We do, or rather, we must. This is why the human-on-the-loop concept is superior to human-in-the-loop. We shouldn't be inside the gear, turning the crank. We should be monitoring the system's performance against our own value sets. If I use an AI to write, I need to treat it like a junior staffer. I don't let a junior staffer define my company's mission. I correct them. I mentor them. We need to maintain that hierarchy.
That hierarchy assumes the junior staffer isn't a million times smarter than you. You mentioned earlier that we can separate performance from learning, that we can have cognitive gyms. But look at the economic incentives. Companies want cheap, fast labor. If an AI can do the job of a copywriter, a paralegal, or a coder instantly, the entry-level jobs, the learning jobs, disappear. If we cut off the bottom rungs of the ladder, how does anyone ever climb high enough to become the architect you want them to be?
That is the transition crisis, absolutely. The apprenticeship model is breaking, but we can build new ladders. In the medical field, we use simulations. In coding, we might shift to high-level system architecture design earlier in education. I mean, the democratization of these tools allows a person with no coding skills to build an app. That is empowerment, not disempowerment. It opens the door for millions of people to create who were previously locked out by technical barriers.
It empowers them to produce, yes, but it disempowers them to understand. And a world full of producers who don't understand what they're building is a fragile world. It's a world of black boxes stacking on top of black boxes. When something breaks, no one knows how to fix it because everyone has been relying on the strategic trust of a system they no longer comprehend.
We're running up against the clock, but I want to try to synthesize this divergence. You see a conservatorship, where we are essentially well-kept pets of a superior intelligence.
I do. I see the Google effect, where we forgot phone numbers because we didn't need them, expanding to morality and critical thought. We're forgetting how to make the hard calls because the machine makes them so easily. My argument is that efficiency is not worth the price of our humanity. The biggest threat isn't that machines start acting like humans, it's that humans start acting like machines, predictable, passive, and dependent.
And I respect the gravity of that warning. It's the necessary check on unchecked acceleration. But I conclude that AI is a tool of immense potential utility in curing disease, in solving climate modeling, in managing complexity that the human brain simply cannot handle alone.
The conservatorship is a potential failure state, yes, but it is not the only destination.
It is the destination of least resistance.
Then we must choose resistance.
We can choose autonomy by design. We can use the Hague framework to insist on strategic trust. We can build defeater mechanisms, systems that warn us when we're being lazy or biased. The goal isn't to reject the tool, but to master it. We're aiming for hybrid intelligence, where the human provides the values and the machine provides the scale.
I hope you're right. But the window to design those defeater mechanisms and cognitive gems is closing. Every day the models get smarter, and every day we get a little more comfortable letting them decide. We are the frog in the boiling water, and the water is getting very comfortable.
Then let this debate serve as a bit of positive friction for our listeners. Don't just let the next episode autoplay. Stop. Think.
Decide if you want to listen to it or if the algorithm wants you to.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on the debate. We'll see you next time.